Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Running on Link podcast, episode 2, where we talk about, we get into the sub weapons and the specials, both of our tier lists, as we have planned for you guys today. Now, let's just start it right off with Dan. Dan's sub weapon tier list. Dan?
All right, so we're gonna go from bottom to top. Obviously, I think everyone knows this. The worst sub win in the game right now is Point Sensor. Obviously, has no real practical use because callouts exist and has never really done anything in this game. We'll get on to how we can maybe buff it later on, as right now we're just gonna go through our tier list. So in B tier, I have, first of all, I have Splash Wall. Well, it's in, never mind. The way it's set up is better the opposite way, my bad right there. So, we'll start off with Splash Wall. So, Splash Wall, in my opinion, it's a bit more of a lower tier sub because it still is a bit janky in some cases. For example, the fact that it has a startup time, which can, if you time it correctly, can sometimes screw you over. It can still easily be destroyed by some comps, like, for example, if you run Object Shred or anything like that, it could easily destroy the wall. So in some situations, it can be really helpful, but in other situations, it can absolutely just be useful. Ink Mines is literally just an updated point sensor, just dealing some damage and getting some ink. But other than that, again, it's really eh. And the only reason it's just a tier above point sensor is because it's better. Then Toxin Mist is a sub that has a lot of potential to be good, but right now it just isn't on many really good weapons. Mostly just because it doesn't really, the weapons that do have it either do not benefit from it, or in general those weapons are eh. And there's that, and also eh. I mean, the sub itself is good, but the fact is that you can easily get out of it sometimes. And again, the weapons it's on doesn't really, the weapons it's on the sub itself doesn't really help those weapons. So it's a bit eh right now. In A tier, we have Autobomb and Beacon. And Beacon is a really good sub, obviously. It's definitely mid tier because unfortunately, since it's not lethal and it really only is a thing that, helps support your teammates to get around the map and stuff. Still really good, but it doesn't really have the same impact as, for example, the lethal bombs, or as we're going to later get on to the god tier subs. Autobomb is pretty much like the only lethal bomb. Before we get into the way better ones, it's pretty good. It detects obviously your enemy and it can chase them around. It can be pretty annoying, but because of the fact it doesn't have the same way, it doesn't have the same, it's not as good as securing kills basically. But it still is an annoyance. It still can get kills in some situations, and it can definitely help move your enemy around and cause disruption. In S tier, now this is where I have a lot of subs. Basically, I have Burst Bomb, Splat Bomb, Sprinkler, Suction, and Curling. So basically, obviously Burst Bomb, Splat Bomb, and Suction Bomb being the main three, basically the main, lethal bombs in the game. Everyone knows them basically, even if you don't really play Splatoon 2 them often. Even if you just play Splatoon 1, everyone knows about these. Burst Bomb gives you nice mobility. It paints pretty well, provides nice chip damage. The weapons is on, or it helps a lot of weapons really well, especially ones that is on. For example, L3 or dualies and so on. Splat Bomb is pretty versatile. It can do anything. It can manipulate your enemy. It can get kills. It can help you get a kill. It's really good. Suction Bomb is really good at just taking a group of people out of an area. Stopping a shark, just because you can't be near a suction bomb because of its same explosion radius. So it's definitely the perfect manipulator, especially against sharking weapons like a roller or dualies, yada yada. Curling Bomb is it's a really good mobility sub. It helps a lot of weapons, that can't really move that well, just move around the map. And it can kill, but it's a bit on that. But I mean, it still can kill. But I think its main point is that it can help you get them out of the map way easier. And especially for weapons that don't have the best mobility, having this sub really helps. Sprinkler then is probably one of the only high tier. It's the only high tier non-lethal sub weapon because the only reason because of this is because it helps you get your special. And as everyone knows, specials obviously help you change the tide of battle insanely fast. Like if you just rush a zone with 4 specials and your team doesn't have any, that's easy, easy change of tides. So basically, having a sprinkler helps you get that special to change the tide of the match. And yeah, now in X tier, we have Fizzy and Torpedo. Basically, both the most pretty much the overpowered sub weapons in the game. As Torpedo obviously easily locks on the enemies. If it actually lands, it deals a lot of damage and it paints a whole lot. Though it's on probably one of the best weapons in the game. And the weapons it's on, it helps them pretty well. And it's like honestly, like it's pretty much really, really solid. And it's pretty cheap too. Fizzy is right now probably the best sub in the game over Torpedo for sure. It paints a hell of a lot. It provides insane chip damage. If you run double Fizzy, you can literally just take zones single-handedly. And running like double Fizzy and like 2 Fizzies in a comp is also really good. It's just a really insane sub that just absolutely can like destroy pushes even. Like this thing can destroy ballers, it can destroy bubbles, it can really just destroy a lot of things. Even in Rainmaker, it destroys the Rainmaker shield like it's nothing. So this is probably the best sub of the game just because of that. Yeah, so I guess, Evan, you want to go to your sub tier list now?
Alright, so there you have Dan's sub-weapon tier list, and now we're going to move on to mine. Pretty similar. Down in the dumps of C tier, we have Point Sensor. This thing needs to get a buff somehow. The only thing they're doing to it is making it throw further, and I mean, yeah, that's okay, but it allows you to use less sub power-ups, so I mean, that's a plus. But the main weapon, not the main weapon, the sub weapon itself is still like really bad. All it does is locate. It has very few situations where it's actually good. Lethal sub weapons in this game are just like much better, and that's why you see this down in the dumps a lot. And a lot of point sensor weapons, quite frankly, aren't even really that high of tiers, just because of the point sensor just drags them down that much. It's actually kind of insane. But until we see a buff from the point sensor, it's going to be down the dumps at C tier for me. Moving on to B tier, we have Ink Mine, and Toxic Mist, which is Ink Mine basically just an upgraded point sensor. It's actually lethal, although it can't one-shot kill, but it definitely does still do a good job of chip damaging people, and it's good for backlines. It's definitely better in point sensor, and it actually inks a bit. It doesn't ink that much. That's why it's still down pretty low. And I mean, locating sub weapons just aren't really that great, aside from ones that we're gonna get to later in this tier list. But yeah, so we got the point sensor, not the point sensor. We got the Ink Mine there. Now Toxic Mist. Toxic Mist had a great time in this game back in like 3.0 when Blaster was like really strong, and when Rapid Pro was really strong. When those were like the best weapons in the game, the Toxic Mist was insane. That was like the Toxic Mist meta. Toxic Mist has severely dropped since then, especially with the addition of new sub weapons, and it's just not really all that anymore. It slows enemies down. It's pretty good. It's a solid sub weapon. I mean, like it doesn't hurt to have it on a weapon, but it's definitely not helping it much or pushing it up to just making it that much better, like the other sub weapons we have later in this tier list that just straight up make the weapon better. It doesn't really do that. It can work on weapons that need it, like on weapons that are needful of it. You know, it can do that, but as of right now in the meta, it just hasn't really been that good. It slows down people. That's about it. It traps them in a little space. That's about it. Now, moving up to C tier, we have Splash Wall and Beacon. Now, Splash Wall and Beacon both, in my opinion, mid-tier subs in this game. They're solid. You know, it doesn't hurt to have it on a weapon, but it doesn't really make it that much better. Again, in the same situation as Toxic Mist, or a bad sub weapon can still be useful on certain weapons. So like midline is where Splash Wall excels, and backline or longer range weapon is where Beacon excels, to where you don't really need a sub weapon to help you space out. Because that's why short range weapons with beacons are so bad. But that's another topic. Beacon helping you move around the map more. It allows you to get in different locations on the map where your teammates aren't. It like you have much different locations to jump to move around to on the map. It gives you a lot of map control. It helps you. Beacons can change the tide of a game, and if the enemy team doesn't take them out when they get kills or in general, like you're just gonna keep coming in and coming in. It's gonna be annoying. It's hard to deal with. You just spawn faster and get back in the battle faster than your enemy does due to the beacons. That's why they're pretty strong. Still not all that great though, because as you know, they aren't lethal, and you know they kind of take away your sub weapon spot. Can't really use them in any good situations when you're trying to kill someone, unless you're using it as a shield to get away or something. But even that's just very not. It's not really done that much. But now moving on to A tier is where we start having some very interesting and strong sub weapons. Here in A tier we have Splat Bomb, Suction Bomb, Curling Bomb, and Auto Bomb. As you see, all of these are indeed lethal subs. Curling Bomb being the best mobility sub in the game, so that's the plus side it has. But due to its damage and its killing power getting nerfed hard several patches ago, it's definitely gone down a bit. But its mobility and the fact that it helps weapons just move that much more still makes it a very solid sub weapon. Just be more annoying, glide around the map more. And they can still kill if you hold the button down, but it is definitely harder to get kills using curling bombs that way. Now moving on to Splat Bomb, your basic bomb of Splatoon 2. This is it. The Splat Bomb does a decent amount of damage. It explodes exactly 1 second after you throw it. It doesn't stick to anything. It's your basic bomb. Very good for it can kill people, it can manipulate their movement. So very good at doing both of those. You can roll it down, predict enemies' movement, and predict where they're gonna go when you're engaging in a fight with them. You can predict where they're gonna go, throw the Splat Bomb there, and if they dance into it, you get an easy kill. It's a very good sub weapon. It paints a decent amount of turf for getting you your special faster. You can use it to get your special faster. You can use it to kill. Has a lot of abilities being lethal. It is very interesting. It's just your solid high tier sub weapon of this game. Now, Suction Bomb, same thing, except it sticks to anything you throw it at, and it explodes exactly 2 seconds after it's been thrown. This sub weapon is used more to just secure an area than it is going for kills. It is much harder to get kills with this, as since it takes 2 seconds to explode, unless you have an enemy trapped, they're gonna dodge out of it. So that's why it's used for manipulating movement. You throw the suction bomb down here. You throw the suction bomb down to the right of you. The enemy's gonna move left. Predict their movement. Go chase them and kill them. You can use it to get more specials because it helps you get special quite a bit. Actually, it's pretty nice. Paint's a decent amount if you ever just want some paint. And it does all of the things Splat Bomb does. I don't really prefer one. Don't really have a preference of which one I think is just straight up better. I don't think they're better than each other. I think they're just pretty equal. They're pretty nice. They both have their uses. Autobomb, locating special. Good at detecting sharking. Good at spotting out enemies. Good at painting. Not really the best at painting like most of these other sub weapons, but it still paints, and it definitely does a good job of just chasing enemies away and annoying them, manipulating them again. Except it stays there longer if it does track someone, which can be annoying and can be useful to your advantage. But if it doesn't locate anything, acts like pretty much a Splat Bomb. It explodes immediately. It paints. All of these being very similar, these are your decent high tier sub weapons in this game, in my opinion. Now, moving on to the good old S tier, we have Burst Bomb and Sprinkler. A lot of you may disagree and think, well, Suction Bomb and Splat Bomb are obviously better than Burst Bomb because they one-shot kill, they paint, they They paint, just about the same, blah, 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 blah. Burst Bomb, here's the thing with Burst Bomb, and this is why I personally think it's just straight up better than all the other lethal sub-weapons in the game. Well, not the other lethal sub-weapons in the game, as you're about to see what I have next here, if you couldn't already guess. But it does a very good job of killing enemies. If someone throws a Burst Bomb, unless they are extremely far away from you and they chuck the Burst Bomb from afar, you can't dodge a Burst Bomb. Unless you do it accidentally, unless you hit the indirect with the Burst Bomb or you just didn't hit the Burst Bomb. Like, you can't dodge because you throw it and then it hits. Like, it comes in the air fast, does all that good stuff. It does an instant 60 damage. As soon as it lands on anything, it explodes. It does not have any extra excess exploding time. That is another thing that is really good about it. It is quick, hard to dodge, and it does an instant 60 damage. And if you 1-2 people with the Burst Bomb, bam, easy kill. It's just insane. And it actually paints, Burst Bombs actually paint quite a lot too, helping you get your special, and they can help you just secure kills more. They can help it does a good job of helping other teammates when they're in fights. You can just chuck Burst Bombs over there by them, help them by painting around them a little bit, supporting them while they're in a fight, throwing them at the other enemy, making them weakened for your teammate to secure the kill. So on and so on. Burst Bombs just do a really good job of all of this, and for this reason, I put them above Splat Bomb, Suction Bomb, Auto Bomb, Curling Bomb, etc. Next, we have Sprinkler. One of the most underrated sub-weapons in the game. Most people think that Sprinkler's trash. It doesn't kill. What does the sub-weapon do? It paints a large amount before the two straight up just broken sub-weapons came into the game. This was the best painting sub-weapon. It paints a lot. It gets you map control. They help you get map control. You can throw them up top in certain areas where the enemy can't even reach, so then you just have a bunch of paint just like constantly going down on the ground. It's very annoying to deal with. You can use them to help you out in 1v1s. Throw the Sprinkler down, and then you just keep shooting at your enemy in a 1v1. Your enemy has to look at the Sprinkler, because if they're standing right by the Sprinkler, like, they're going to take damage, and eventually they're not even going to have ink under them because the Sprinkler is going to be painting all around them. So they have to take away time. So they have to take away their time from shooting you to shoot the Sprinkler to destroy it, which gives you time to shoot the enemy while the enemy's not shooting at you. It just makes 1v1s easier. It makes life easier. This is a very solid, underrated sub-weapon. And remember to reset the Sprinkler, because after about 5 to 10 seconds, after it being in one spot, you typically want to reset it. If you don't reset it, this becomes less powerful. That's another mistake a lot of competitive players do. But yeah, that's the Sprinkler, and I think those two are in S+ tier now. Moving on, what do you know? We have the Torpedo and the Fizzy Bomb in X tier. Do I even need to explain myself? I mean, Dan's already said enough. Fizzy Bomb paints insanely. It destroys objects much better than the other sub-weapons do, since it explodes multiple times. Torpedo tracks down enemies. It does a better job of killing. It does an insane amount of chip damage. It helps a lot of weapons out in fights. If you want me to go in depth, I can, using the invite link to the SI server in the description. You can talk about any of our opinions in the SI chats and discussions.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm not gonna go too far into this, because it's just obvious. Like, they're the best sub-weapons in the game.
Yeah. I guess we're gonna go to specials now, right?
Yep.
All right, then. So for specials, all right. So obviously we're gonna start in F tier. And in here we got the 3 worst bomb rushes in the game: Burst Bomb Rush, Curling Rush, and Auto Rush. So it's pretty simple to put out. Like, Auto Rush has one fatal flaw that sort of kills it. The way auto bombs work in the game is that when they track an enemy, they go to it. When you throw, for example, 2 auto bombs, both auto bombs will start going to the one person. They won't. It's not like when one auto bomb tracks to one person, that person cannot be tracked anymore. So what happens is that, for example, if you just throw your auto bomb rush everywhere, if one person's just moving around, they can track all the auto bombs to them, and just make them explode in one spot, and then there goes your special. Or maybe only target 2 people. The only way to make this thing paint and actually do something is to actually predict where people are going to move, so it targets different people. But that isn't as easy to do because Autobomb's detection radius is just really fucking annoying. So unfortunately, that's why it's pretty much one of the worst specials in the game. Curling Rush has a different story. It is way too easy to dodge. The way the thing moves is extremely slow unless you obviously hold it, but basically holding to, make it go faster sort of just wastes it a bit and doesn't really help with that much. And still, again, it's really easy to dodge. And even if it hits, it only does 20 damage, which is minuscule. It does nothing. The only thing it can really help with is for weapons that actually benefit from curling mob chip damage, but the only one that does is Bamboozler. And yeah, there's not that many Bamboozler gods, so it's a bit of an oof. The weapons this thing is on does nothing for those main weapons at all. It's just really useless. Burst Bomb Rush being only on one weapon, again, doesn't really do much to help the one weapon it is on. In general, doesn't really do much since it paints, I guess. But other than that, the chip damage it provides is highly inconsistent. And without many weapons that benefit from a flurry of burst bombs, it's pretty much useless. So, now to, let me see here. Now to D tier, we have 10 missiles. So 10 missiles are not bottom tier anymore. It took them a while, but hey, at least they're not absolute garbage anymore. The reason they're not absolute garbage anymore is because at least now they shoot pretty fast, and if you do use them in some mode combos, they could be an interesting niche, as you can possibly push with them and they can help you get kills. But again, this can only work on certain weapons or certain mode combos. An example of this is, for example, Vanilla Slosher or Vanilla Splat Dualies, since Vanilla Splat Dualies have a burst bomb, which with 10 missile chip damage can work out. As well as it's really easy to follow up with Dualies with 10 missiles, because in general, Dualies, that's why pretty much in general, the catch Dualies are really good, because they can easily follow up for kills, because half the time when you run them in a comp, you can run them with an Inkjet, like Emperies or T-Tech, and they can help you follow up with kills. So because of that, in general, Dualies are really good at following up, and that's why probably Vanilla Dualies are probably the best 10 missile weapon in the game. But that's just an example of how they can be used, and that's why they're not bomb tier anymore. Now, to B tier. In B tier, we have Splat Bomb Rush, Splashdown, and Booyah Bomb. So, Splat Bomb Rush is the second best rush in the game. The only reason it's better than the other ones is because at least this one paints. It can actually be a nuisance, and some of the weapons it's actually on, it actually helps it quite out a bit with the chip damage. For example, Machine Neo, since it does 76 damage with a bomb that does 30, it can, can actually help it get kills, since 30 plus 76 is over 100, so it can get a kill. It's a pretty interesting combo, and it can work really well. Then Splashdown, even though it is on the best weapon in the game, yes, on some other weapons, it's not as helpful. And sometimes you can actually drag down a weapon, because at the current moment, Splashdown, it used to be insanely good, but it got a multitude of nerf. Well, it actually only got one nerf, which was it made it way easier to counter. And because of that, sometimes when you splash down as a panic button or in other situations, it can easily be countered. But at least now it's not trash anymore, and it's around a bit lower than mid tier, just because it can destroy bubbles, it can destroy a lot of objects, it can help out sometimes with chip damage depending on the weapon. So it's pretty okay. Booyah Bomb got a buff recently, and now it's actually. It still needs a couple of. At least now I can actually get a kill. Like, if someone is, in the Booyah Bomb, they're dead. Because before you were able to run out of it because of the less damage and the fact that it was extremely slow. So at least now it can secure a kill if, the person's in. If they are supposed to be dead, they're dead. No, the pre-patch Booyah Bomb. So now in A tier, we have Bubbles, Suck Rush, and Hammer. So basically, Bubbles, they used to be probably around S tier, definitely, but because of the fact they got nerfed with damage and the fact they don't last as long, sort of just hits them hard a bit. But they're still a really solid special, especially on backliners, and they can definitely do the jobs on this to get zone or help with pushes, especially when you have a baller on your team. Suck Rush, on the other hand, Suck Rush is the best bomb rush in the game, just because it paints insanely, and it forces the enemy to move no matter what. Like when you use this thing in the zone or when you use it for a push, people have to move because this thing literally causes just a bunch of explosions, and it's hell on earth. This is actually really good in some cases, for example, for destroying objects like bubbles and baller and clam blitz. It does have that small niche because it can destroy those things really easily, and it's actually a pretty solid niche. So now we move on to Hammer, which recently got some buffs. Hammer is very close to being an actual somewhat useful special, but it still just has some inconsistencies, but those can be easily fixed. For example, its hitbox. But other than that, it's pretty fast, and if used correctly, you can get a bunch of kills with this thing. As obviously you can throw it for if you want just at the end of using it, and pretty much the fact that you can now jump, you can do your jump swing and then go straight back to just like charging like a train, like insanely fast, is actually pretty good. So yeah, that's my A tier. Now let's go to S tier. So S tier has Rain, Inkjet, and Stingray. So Inkjet is, used to be the best special in the game without a doubt, but meta sort of screwed it over since backliners got really good. Then Brella came into the meta for a bit, and then H3 is but the meta just sort of shifted and it sort of screwed it over a bit, but it's still a really strong special and definitely is part of the three that are the second best tier specials. Pretty much most of the time on good jet maps, you definitely want at least one of these. And even on some maps like Monte Maria, you can still run two, especially if you run armor with it, since armor Inkjets is insane still. So this still is a very solid special. Rain is another pretty solid special, as it obviously, when you pop it down, it provides good paint. It provides some chip damage to anyone that's in it, and on weapons like Ballpoint, Dapple Doolies, weapons that really benefit from a chip damage and just having something to move in with, yeah, Rain definitely helps those weapons out, and it definitely just really helps. Any weapon with Rain it's pretty good, or at least it's niche. So, yeah, so now we're moving on to Stingray. This used to be another special in the game that was insane, as it used to be able to stop games like that. But we're going to get onto it later, the next two specials, which is why this thing moved down a bit. But it's still really solid. It can still pretty much end a game, and it can still provide help with pushes. It can still, counter the other team's Stingray when you're pushing. It's still a really solid special. Now to X tier. We have Armor and Baller. So Armor pretty much is pretty much the bane of Stingray and Armor, and it was really the reason why those two, another reason why those two dropped a bit down a bit. First of all, Armor takes 50% less damage from Stingray. That was one of the patch notes. So basically, when you Stingray someone with Armor, it takes way longer than, like, for example, you're just Stingraying a normal person without Armor. So obviously, when you pop Armor, when they start Stingraying, it's way easier just to survive it. Then obviously with Inkjet, you can take like one or two extra shots depending on the situation, and then yeah, that's pretty much Armor. And in general, it's really good for pushes. Helps taking like an extra shot, helps in fights. It's really solid, and honestly, pretty much made the midline meta, which is midline Armor. Then Baller probably is right now another special that got some buffs. One of them was obviously less knockback from Stingray, which helped it out in the sense that pretty much half the time when you used to use Baller, if they were Stingraying, it would basically just literally make you immobile with the Baller and just absolutely just shred the special. So it pretty much ruined the chance of Baller being really good. And eventually that was, the same thing with Inkjet. Inkjet sort of destroyed Baller, but now both of them were nerfed a bit in those effects, and so because of that, basically, that means that, like, for example, Baller sort of counters Inkjet because you can charge a Inkjet with Baller without getting destroyed, and same thing with Stingray, you can charge a Baller with a Stingray. Sorry, other way around. My bad. So yeah, right now that's my specials tier list, and yeah, Evan, if you want to go ahead.
Now, I would love to waste your guys' time even more, but there really isn't that much difference in our special tier list, so I'm just gonna get for my C tier. I have the 3 meme specials. For B tier, this is the only difference. Instead of 10 missiles, I have Splat Bomb Rush. Splat Bomb Rush and 10 missiles are switched between our 2 special weapon tier lists, just because I think 10 missiles have a chance now, and they have like seen some daylight now, and I think they can capitalize. I think they can capitalize better off of the special itself. You can capitalize better off of the special itself, because you shoot the 10 missiles, they all hit the people at once. If you get your team to rush the people while they're dodging 10 missiles, it can be very annoying. And it's honestly the same thing as like suction bombs, where you're spacing them out to manipulate them to get easy kills, except it's a special and it's even better because you're doing it to the whole team. Splat bomb rush, it has to be in one certain area, and it does paint a lot of the map, but I don't know. I'm just feeling like 10 missiles do have a chance right now, and they're pretty solid. But yeah, and let's see, A tier, I think, CB8, yeah, A tier, I have 10 missiles, splashdown, and booyah bomb. And then everything else is pretty much the same. I mean, like, S is the hammer, suction rush, and then bubbles, S plus, stingray, rain, inkjet, and then X, of course, the two meta specials right now, ink armor and baller, for the same reasons he added, and I could go into more detail on my side of it, but due to time reasons, we can't do that as of right now. But so yeah, that is our subs and specials tier list. For this is just a heads up before we go into our next topic next week,
which we'll be discussing.
Don't wanna spoil that quite yet, but you'll see. This is just a heads up on the next episode.
Yep.
And
so if you disagree with anything on these tier lists, just again, join the SI public server through the link in the description. Go to the discussion chats and just tell us, I don't agree that, for example, Point Sensor's D tier. I think it's X tier. Now, hopefully, no one will actually say that, being serious, because I will probably lose brain cells. But yeah, so if you guys want to go against any of our opinions or discuss the meta, go ahead and join the server last time and go there. Yeah.
But just another disclaimer. You guys might be wondering, hey, your sub up in tier list looks familiar. Don't know if you haven't seen this video yet, but my sub up in tier list is pretty much spot on the same with Soren's, because I just agree with his sub up and tier list, and everything he explained in his video makes sense. His videos, the link to his sub up and tier list video will be in the description if you want to see that, basically being a more in-depth analysis from a top level player of what I think of the sub up and tier list, because it's the same. So yeah, definitely go check that out. Go check out our server. Maybe, chat with us about what we think about our subs and specials tier list. But yeah, until next week, this has been the Running on the Link podcast, and we will see you guys next week.
See you guys.